Welcome back, everybody. We're back here with Eastern Shore Talk. We are on episode 16. We've actually been podcasting since March. I looked back the other day, and I think March 21st was our very first recorded. Back in the days of audio only, Cathy, we were just doing voiceover work back for Eastern
It
Shore
was
Talk
easy. Voice was easier.
podcast.
I don't have to fix my face.
And of course, I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Castle.
And I'm Liza Ledford.
And we have had Liza come back again. She's going to be our recurring guest to do all things movies and streaming. And our topic for today is going to be how movies make us feel, the self-care of movies. That's perfectly applicable to what we do here at Eastern Shore Talk. So we're going to dive into that today. And Liza might have a neat little story from her Hollywood days, and we'll kind of jump into that topic here in a minute. But what I want to do first is something I'm going to start doing here new is we're going to start kind of doing a quick little check-in amongst whoever's on the podcast that episode, just to kind of like say hello and catch back up. I mean, Cathy and I talk to each other pretty regularly, so we kind of sort of know what's going on. But Liza, it's been probably a month or so since she's been on, so we're going to kind of check in with each other and see what's new and what's going on with everybody's life. So what's going on, ladies?
Well, do you want me to go first? I'll go first. Well, let's just take it back a week. So it's been hot, right? You guys can all agree with that.
Yep.
I love June, but I'm not ready for August yet. And that heat has been no joke. We've been doing some replacing of an outdoor deck at our house. So manual labor and heat are not my favorite thing. So that's interesting. And Liza can probably appreciate this. For us nonprofits, it's the end of a fiscal year. So that is quite exhausting. And so that's going on. But on a good note, I booked a trip last weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it was impulsive because it was in my brain for a while, but I booked a cruise for my fam, and it's going out July the 5th, so it's kind of impulsive. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Now, didn't you go to Bermuda last year and your son proposed?
I'm doing a repeat trip. Nobody's proposed. They can't. Nobody's proposing this time.
That you know of.
If people are cruisers, we used to be big cruise people before we had kids, and then we're just little cruise people. We might have went on one with the kids. So last year we went on one, and this might sound so strange, but we're doing the exact same itinerary, different boat, same cruise line, but this one's kind of neat because it goes out of Boston, and I am such a big fan of that city. That city's just, I find it very fun. I like Boston, and we're going to be there on the 4th of July. So that's either going to be the worst decision I've ever made, or it's going to be amazing. And then we leave from Boston and we go to Bermuda. And the cool thing about this ship is that you're in Bermuda for 3 days. So you're 2 nights, like a floating hotel. And cruises that I used to take in the past, they were pretty fast paced. You're at sea maybe a couple days, but island, and the next day is an island, the next day an island. It's just go, go, go. So this is really different because you can just, I come back if I want to go off of the boat at 1 a.m, I can, or if I want to, whatever, I just do what I want. So I don't know. It's fun. And we, there's some good memories from last time. We even have a taxi driver who was actually and if you can believe, you'll believe this about me, Jay. He's also a talent agent, and we've kept in touch. I feel like we're like BFFs. His name's Bootsy. Bootsy baby. And I've already contacted him. We're going to hang out with our Bermuda friends. Like so it's going to be fun. And we go to Maine. We go to Bar Harbor.
Oh, cool.
Whereas my dad keeps saying Bahaba, and then he makes everybody die. Like, don't say that. The kids are like, stop with the accent that you don't have.
Yeah.
We're pretty psyched.
Oh, cool. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, same kind of thing. That's funny you say that. I went to high school actually in Boston. I grew up here, but
You
then went
did.
off to high school in Boston. So
I don't think I knew that, Liza.
that's why I have kind of a spotty. I was at some of the parties, but not all the parties in high school
Yeah,
because I would
yeah,
always visit. My brother was here the whole time and my sister, so I was always in and out. So that was my little
So
secret.
I might need the private Liza talk about Boston then, or Boston at 4th of July. I might need that. Okay.
Amazing. And I just went there for Memorial Day weekend.
Did?
It was my birthday. And my brother, that was the gift he gave me for my birthday, was to get me back with my high school friends.
Oh,
So I
cool.
guess the theme with me right
Ah,
now is like reconnecting to some of those early friendships and early relationships, especially as we're like getting older, or at least I
yeah,
am. They're so meaningful and fun and to see and like check in with people now and what
I love it.
lives
I
have
love it.
been. I'm
So
really
where'd you go? Where did you go in Boston? That
Oh my
makes me really
gosh.
happy that you
I
did
don't
that.
even know. We went to like Seaside. There was like this beautiful old castle ruins.
Mm.
Then we went to this museum. I can't remember I don't remember anything like the names of things, but it was this art museum that you then could take a little boat over to this other side. And so we were like, oh, we got a boat cruise in with the same museum ticket. It was like a really great day. Then we went to rooftop bars and we were checking out all these rooftops
I may
and
need to
views.
know. You need to text me those. I need to know those
They were
because
really, really worth it. Cool.
I'm staying down at the seaport, and I understand that the fireworks are over there on that Charles River by that Cambridge side. So I'm like, am I going to see them? Am I going to see those fireworks?
I think I'll find out from my friends. I'll put out a little notice
All
and
right,
see
I'll
what
give
to
you the
do.
deal. See
Okay,
that?
good.
Your podcast is good, Jay, for vacation plans. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm glad
We,
you
we
that makes my heart that makes my heart good because I love Liza. Liza Moore is a really special person and I know she works very hard. And I really want her to brag about herself because I know you got an award.
yes,
I want you to,
please.
can you please brag about yourself?
I'm totally humbled. And I mean, that's the thing. So for the Oxford Community Center, I've been there 7 years now and just sort of throwing things against the wall of ideas of events and everything. So I got an award this last weekend from the museum, who gives an annual award, the Douglas Hanks Jr. Oxford. It's a preservation award where it's like preserving the spirit of Oxford in sort of his personality, which he was a really great fighter. He was one of the people who was always he saved the OCC from being
So
demolished.
is this our Dougie's father? Like
Not,
our Dougie Hanks?
I don't think so.
You know who I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
Is this an older gentleman or somebody our age?
Older.
It must I
He's
bet you it's his
passed.
father. I bet you
Maybe.
it's his father
But
because
he
they
was
were
junior. Was it like a third or somebody? You're
because I knew a Doug Hanks and he lives in Miami now. He's a sailor, and we
oh
would go to his house in
yeah.
Oxford all the time.
Yes, it is.
So it's his dad.
Absolutely. Because
His
it's two
dad?
grandladies. Yeah. Yes. I just, all I know is I got the award and I'm so excited. I know of his legacy and his personality from doing the research on the OCC being saved and all of that personality and how much he is respected for all of the things that he did to preserve Oxford and all of its history. So he
That's
to get the award of being somebody who's preserving the history and the
amazing.
spirit was amazing. Because as you know, I wasn't here for high school, so I don't know a lot of legacies and people of
Yeah.
and that. But yes, I do know the family members are Doug's down in Florida, and his sister Suzanne is still in Oxford, and so yes, the short
Well, that
answer is I just
that
didn't know him.
you deserve that award. You
Absolutely.
100%
Yeah.
deserve that
It
award.
feels amazing. I was completely shocked. They started reading like some written stuff about this person, this winner, and this and that, and they're mentioning the community center, and I'm like looking around the room, thinking it's got to be my boss, the board members, I'm just, and I'm like, well, now they're talking about the events and the programs. I was like, I literally the whole time was just searching for like who else is standing
Aw.
around here that this could fit, and my eyes just welled up when they said my name. I was seriously so shocked, and it was so great. But I take that award for everybody. The whole place is run by volunteers that are just unbelievably amazing, and they just put so much blood, sweat, and tears in the place. So a lot of my ideas are a little outside the box, and everyone sort of jumps in and says, let's try it. And I'm so grateful the town, or at least the museum, gave me that award for like keep on going, I guess. And
Yeah.
that's why I
Where
love
was it? Where was the event?
at the Oxford Museum. They did a
At the
60th
museum.
anniversary birthday party for themselves. And at that birthday party, that annual birthday party, they will give the Doug Hanks Award.
Now,
So
where is the museum at?
You know, it's right in the town of Oxford, across from the town park. It's on the street across from the town office and the police station.
Is it on the corner? On the corner across from where the old Quick Mart used to be, right, kind of next door, kind of, sort of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, next to the Muse, next to all that stuff. Now the ice cream shop. Yes.
Yeah. They've moved up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
That's so exciting.
It was really, really fun just because it's got such a legacy to it, like I was saying, and such personality. So I was so honored and so surprised. And I share it with John Tachko, who's another person who works. He's the unbelievable volunteer that all of us use down in Oxford or request and seek out. He's just a wonderful person who gives so much from his heart to all the organizations down there. So he was also given the award with me too.
Go ahead, Jake.
I actually saw a picture on your brother's Instagram. That's how I found out that you'd won the award.
That's right.
on Chris Fusion Studios site. Yeah.
Oh, he's so sweet. Yes, he did. I'm so shy about these things. I put it out at after that evening, I came home and I was so excited. And I put it out on Instagram. He said some nice comments, and then I started getting shy seeing all the comments, and I just deleted the whole post.
Oh, Liza.
It's so stupid. I'll put it back out again now that the museum has announced it. Then I'll go back and
I know what you're saying, though. It's like when you do service, community kind of work, you don't want the attention on yourself.
Yeah.
You want it to other people. So that's a self-care thing that's really hard for me, is to accept thank yous.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, but gosh, you deserve it. You deserve it. I'm proud of you.
It is hard to accept that, though. You are right. Like every time I hear that sentence, I just think of 8 million other people who we work together with, everyone else who's contributed to it. I can't accept it without them all being part of it.
And that's what you say. You're like, yeah, but it's not just me. But yeah.
Yeah.
I've been told by coaches that you just say thank you. You don't just say why you shouldn't have it. Just say thank you, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because we don't serve in order to get anything in return. So there's a little bit of guilt and a little bit of, wait a minute, this isn't how it's supposed to be, in a sort of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt so singular. Luckily I was sharing it with John Tachko, but for the Oxford Community Center in my name, it just felt so, this needs to be pluralized, by 100.
Yeah. Liza, I'll tell you a little family history about me. So I'm a bad directions person. So if you're coming into Oxford, you pass your community center, right? And you're hooking around, right? And there's the water and the boats. My family had a house. Do you know there's they're all narrow houses, but it's like, I think it has red siding on it right now and a little porch. And there is a big area behind it that was like a crab picking place. So my dad's mother's family lived there from Oxford. And my aunt lived in that, or great aunt to me, I guess, lived in that house. And we would go there all the time. And I wish we still had that house. And they were a real, probably salt of the earth kind of people, We'd go and there'd always be musical instruments and people were singing. Not me. I couldn't carry a tune or play it, but I'm thinking, wow, And they also didn't turn their air on. It was so incredibly hot.
Now, Cathy, didn't Scott Baker live a couple houses up from where you're talking about?
Yeah, he does live down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
He lives like right around the corner from the harbor, just, I don't know, 2 or 3 houses up.
It's a little further down from where this house was, but not too much.
Yeah.
He's got a lovely place now.
Yeah.
And we got to give him a plug because now he's the owner of Brinsfield Fence.
Okay.
For all your fencing needs.
There you go.
Yes.
Right?
We just did my neighbor's fence, and it's
Supports
amazing.
And Brinsfield's a big time fencing name here on the Midshore. Like everybody knows, in the fencing world, everybody knows that name here.
Yep. And speaking of that, Oxford Community does a picket fence thing. Like
Mm.
it's one of their big town wide profit sharing things where artists will make a fence for a nonprofit of their choice, and then we do a big auction once a year, and each different nonprofit gets all the profit. So Oxford Business Association sponsors this event, and we've now turned it into sort of a scavenger hunt, like go find the 12 fences. They're spread out all over
Mm.
town, and it's a neat thing. But Brinsfield, Scott and Trish sponsored it. They made the fences for us this year.
Oh,
So
cool.
each, like the blank palettes, if you will, they
Yeah.
made them all. We got 12 artists, 12 different organizations, and it's been a really cool tradition down there, these Oxford fences.
Oh, wow. Have you already done that?
No, the auction is in October.
That's really cool.
October
You'll have to
19th.
tell us more about that when it
Yeah.
gets close.
Yes.
That's really
And
cool.
it's on the same day as the 5K run walk that I'm always trying to chase you down to join us with, because that's for
Yeah.
mental health also. And that's
Yeah,
the
you need to
morning.
make
I
you need
know
to
there's so much you're doing. There's so many things, but that's another really cool thing that we do to tie into mental
make
health.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So my life's been pretty typical, pretty normal. Kathy, as you know, I'm a very
Well,
regimented kind of guy. But I will say this: there's been something that's kind of been weighing on me, and and this is kind of why when we were talking earlier about trying to schedule some recordings before you leave for vacation, the whole social media thing kind of popped back up again. I don't know how much you follow golf at all.
that's random. No.
Well, bear with me because it'll come around and it'll start making sense in our mental health and
Are we talking
health
mini
care.
golf or
No, like professional golf.
I'm kidding.
So, um, there's a professional golfer on the ladies tour. Her name is Lexi Thompson. You see her on commercials and stuff, and she actually turned pro. She was 12 years old. She's only 29
Goodness.
now, and she actually qualified for a pro tournament at 12 years old. She was like the Tiger Woods, like the young phenom on the female side for a while. Well, not too long ago, she announced she was retiring after the end of this season, and I saw there was one of their major tournaments this past weekend, and I saw a piece of the interview they did with her, and when the reporters asked her, "Why are you retiring?" and she got very emotional, and she said, the whole, my mental health is suffering.
Oh wow.
Us pro athletes are under such scrutiny on social media from reporters. It's just so much pressure. This thing that I've wanted to do since I was a kid and I've loved to do, I'm 29 years old and I can't do it anymore. I got to walk away from my mental health. And it reminded me of
Right.
Simone Biles. I don't know,
Yeah.
4 years ago,
Yeah.
she actually stepped away during the Olympics. She
Right.
just, because of her mental health. Now she's coming back, so I'm excited to see her back.
I know.
And then there's the pro tennis player Naomi Osaka, did the same thing. She's young, 20 years old. A couple of years ago, she was falling apart in press conferences and refused to do them for a while because it was too much for her. So she stepped away. She's kind of slowly come back. Well, about a month ago, there was a golfer on the men's tour who has had some mental health issues his whole life, who played the first round of a tournament, didn't do very well, and took his own life, like at the tournament.
Oh yes. Yes, I remember that story. Yeah.
Yes.
He withdrew, right?
Well,
He
no, he did. Well, yes, he withdrew, saying he wasn't feeling well, but
Right.
then ended up
Yes.
taking his life the night
Yes.
that night. Yeah.
I did pay attention to that story.
So kind of all these things kind of came flooding back to me, and the whole thing about Kathy, I've talked about this, how the general state of mental health in this country, and not even talking about the diagnosed things, but just generally is just, and it's and I know you're a big advocate proponent of first responders and the mental health on that side, but it just got me thinking about how these pro athletes and Lexi Thompson talked about this in a press conference. She says none of you have any idea, like the scrutiny and the pressure, and we've got to deal with all this on top of working hard to try to hone our craft. And she said it's exhausting, and everybody's got an opinion, and you're bombarded with stuff on social media, and you try to ignore it and not go on. But it always comes up, and it just,
Mm-hmm.
I look, there's that question that I ask myself, and I'm like, why do people have to be so mean? But then I try to spin it, and I'm thinking, and I go back to the state of mental health in this country, and I'm like, well, those people there's something that they're dealing with where they have to lash out at this professional golfer who has, it's not in their life, who their how well she plays or doesn't play has no impact on their life, yet they feel the need to lash out and be mean and hurtful in a lot of circumstances. And it just, I don't know, it just that whole thing just, it's kind of a form of bullying. But I try to have grace, and I think, what is going on in those people's lives, where what are they dealing with, where they are lashing out, and they're, it just, yeah. So that's been on my mind a lot. I tend to deal with my own stuff a lot easier and a lot, healthier than I do kind of the world. Kathy, I self isolated for so long, and I found that as I've kind of come out of my cocoon, so to speak, and I've kind of reintegrated, I'm more aware of the things, the outside things, and those stories, like they sit heavy with me because there's no excuse for treating someone like that, but B, the whole mental health state in this country just kind of, it's sad, and you know, people like you, Kathy, that do it every day for a living, I'm sure you go to work and you're thinking, okay, maybe tomorrow it's better, and okay, maybe tomorrow it's better, and maybe tomorrow it's better, and
No, I don't think
yeah.
that way, actually.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just, what I'm saying is, I just can't even imagine someone who does it 24/7 like you do, like how you've been able to deal with it like that.
Well, I'll just say this too, Jay, that I was in a meeting today. My agency, Channel Marker, is one of the leads in a new coalition, and it's called the Midshore Suicide Coalition. And it's new. So, but what we're trying to do is actually take the 5 counties, our 3 counties that I work in, which is Talbot, Caroline, and Dorchester, and then also Kent and Queen Anne, and figure out all the entities that are doing things in that space and bringing people together and trying to get at what are the issues maybe that we're missing, or how do we take our combined talents and address some things. So you actually bringing that up makes me think of somebody else that we could bring on a podcast and really talk about some of these issues. But, we were just saying today, there's so many groups of people right now. You're talking about athletes or professional athletes in that case, or more specifically golfers, but you can take any group of people. Like today we were talking about watermen, farmers, obviously we've put a lot of time into first responders lately, or our kids. But we can sit here all day long, for example, and educate, have a speaker, talk about the topic, talk about the stigma. But somebody said today in this meeting I was in, and it kind of made some sense. Like, how do we take somebody that is trusted in whatever community you're talking about, whether it's the golfing community, watermen, I just keep using watermen, farmers, because I don't think we've done a good job in that space. But how do you educate, how do you have like somebody that represents that group or has a connection or relationship with that group, and then you can get information to take back to them, that somebody that they trust, and just kind of talk about it. Like in that instance that you're talking about they're 29, still young to me.
Yeah.
You're talking about 29-year-olds our American life is just busy, fast-paced, garbage in, garbage out, 24/7. You can't hang up the phone, right? You literally can't hang up the phone. So people they're tired, they're worn out, and people are struggling more to self-regulate. They're, struggling more to disconnect. And you're right, their mental, all of our mental states are a little more fragile. And how do we help people? What is it, Jay? Self-care.
And look, I don't know the answer. I don't. I don't know that anybody knows the answer, or it would have been fixed, or it would have been in a better state. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I just
And that's social media. I mean, and I know that we'll do another session on that, but
yeah,
it takes some pretty good discipline to not pay attention to the bad noise, doesn't
yeah.
it?
Mhm.
And a lot of these, whether it's celebrities or pro athletes, they have people that do that for them. But and maybe that helps filter out a lot of that stuff to some degree. But it's oh, man, and
What do
you
you
could
call
just
that? What do you call people that trolls? Isn't it? What do they call them, trolls?
yeah,
That just
internet trolls.
throwing some
Mhm.
bad stuff. I mean, we've all seen it. Somebody will take the thinnest of young women and just say mean things, or make a comment about, oh, I forget which celebrity it was recently, and then I saw this. Oh, is she pregnant? And I'm like, what? Why are we even talking about
Yeah,
this?
Mhm.
And then what image does that give to all the people that are really thin but think that they're not because somebody makes mean comments? It's just so it's hard.
and this is a young woman, Kathy, that has been like such a great symbol for women's golf. She's been exemplary. She's always been wonderful with the press, and she's great with the kids. And she does all the signs autographs, and like you can't really have picked a better role model for women's golf than her. And for somebody like her, not to say that it's an excuse for anybody, but to have to deal with stuff like that, it just, and it just got my mind going. And I thought about Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles, and I thought about the male golfer who took his own life, and
Or
we
that's even I don't know these people, but I would assume those are people that have had a pretty unscarred career, if you want, in the media. Then you take some people that had some spots on their record and how
yeah,
that they're dealing with that struggle, whatever it may be. And then there's all the bad press on top
yeah.
of that. And how do you recover from that? We're
Mhm.
not really nice.
I wonder if and this might sound weird, but to some degree, those athletes that have been in trouble in whatever way, and have to deal with that, if they kind of like, in a way, it's not easier because it's just about that event, that whether it's drunk driving or domestic abuse,
Yeah.
and they're all things that are wrong. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah, you don't
but
want to minimize the problem, but
no,
we don't easily forgive for those.
but like the thing that I'm talking is more along, it's a bullying thing, whereas these other people that are saying, hey, this guy should have drunk and drive, or we've got to do something better about domestic abuse. It's more focused on that, whereas you're nitpicking this woman who's been nothing but exemplary in her field and bullied her, and now she feels like she has to step away just to kind of find some peace within herself and
Yeah.
kind of be able to hopefully turn that noise off, and she'll have no trouble finding a job as a golf coach, or maybe as a TV analyst or whatever. So she'll be fine in that regard for sure, because she's the kind of person you want to represent golf in whatever way.
But you
Um,
hate to see her give up the sport, right?
at 29, like she's just one of those. You know, women's golf unfortunately is a little bit different than men's, where there's only a handful of like recognizable names on the
Mhm.
women's side, whereas there's 50 on the men's side. Just because the whole the inequality of how women's sports is put out there. So, but she's one of those handful of names that is instantly recognizable if you're even remotely a golf fan, whether a male or female at all. That name is recognizable for sure. It's just it's unfortunate, and
Yeah.
my mind always goes to how do we get better? How do we get better so there are fewer people that are in a mental state where they lash out at pro athletes? And how do we get better as far as, like you're saying, in the golf world? And I'm sure that the LPGA, who's the governing body for women's golf, has people on staff at every event, whether it's, counselors or therapists or whomever, just like they have medical staff. I'm sure that that's the case.
Hopefully.
But is there a more acute, more specific thing? And maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. I know MLB the NBA and the NFL have really kind of stepped up as far as really advocating and putting more resources, not just the leagues but the teams, into mental health and being more aware and having more resources available. So
Yeah, I was hearing one time, I think it was in response to maybe the Ravens, professional football, that they are even getting coaches because these are kids coming in for the most part, and now you're getting a lot of money.
yeah,
So how to handle going from Joe regular like us to somebody that has a
there's
lot.
orientation classes. They make the rookies
Yeah.
take those classes, and that's great that they do that.
Well, and I'm sure there's people to take advantage of them too. So it's like a
Yep.
lot of things out there they've got to deal with at a young age.
I know my son Mason was his college degree is in sports
Oh,
psychology.
yes, that's
So I
right.
do love that the focus of that being a side of psychology that is so specific to the high intensity and the high
Yeah.
pressure, but then also coping skills and life skills and
Yeah.
that combination in that particular arena. I love that. And he was saying that at least was in the Baltimore area at Stevenson, and they have, like, if you get, say, professional players who are actual spokespeople in the spokes deals, it's a one-on-one. Every single athlete that has a spokes deal thing gets an individual sports psychologist to them who
Oh,
follows them around
wow.
and helps
Mm.
them. And so that career is hopefully taking off, and there's more for everybody. But the bigger problem, though, is the humanity of the world who still is doing the horrible
Yeah.
behavior. Like, no matter how much you learn to ignore it, or you just move on and focus on your positive things, it's like, how do you change the culture a little bit in general?
Hmm.
That will be more helpful. But at least they are having a lot of that added
Yeah.
to that arena.
So we'd rather be preventative of it and not reactive to those
Yeah,
problems, but that's the reality of where we are.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. So let's get a little more pleasant and more fun and kind of
Now we've
hit that.
done the hard stuff.
Yeah. And let's talk about let's dive into how movies make us feel and kind of the real self care of why we all probably go
Well,
see
you need to
movies.
start that. You're the king of that department,
Yeah,
the
yes.
president of that club, Jay.
Well, here, I'm sure everybody that's listened either to the podcast or in the group or any of my social media at all knows every Friday night religiously I go to the movies, and it kind of it actually, Kathy, was, and I don't know that I've told you this part, maybe I have. It was born out of, I was going 7 years ago now. I was going through a very difficult breakup, and I started going to the movies just to keep myself busy, just to distract myself, to not be sitting at home, wallowing in the stuff I was going through. I just kind of did it as an escape. Don't get me wrong, I've always been a movie lover for sure, and movies have always kind of played a role of self care in some way, always, just because of my background and um, my childhood. But as I started going, I started realizing how, like, when I would leave my house on Friday evening after eating dinner to go to the theater, I could literally feel my body relaxing just on the drive to the theater. I started realizing that it was it was not just about the entertainment for those 2 hours, enjoying what I saw on the screen for those 2 hours. It was kind of turning my mind off from the hectic work week mindset, and I was now transitioning over to the weekend more relaxed mindset. So it was a mindset shifter. It was it
Shifter.
was it was an all thing. It was an all moment. It
Your
kind of
concussion zone.
and I still, and look, I've moved closer to town now, so I'm literally a 3 minute drive from the theater now. But in those 3 minutes, it's like, oh, I can, my body, and people talk about how you not only carry stress in your mind, but physiologically in your body. Like, I can feel my body just, and like walking into the theater, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. J," and all the young kids that work there, they know who I am, and I've told them about the podcast, so they're like, "Hey, are you going to talk about this movie?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm going to talk about the movie on the podcast," and it's just that 20 or 30 minutes that I'm sitting there waiting, watching the previews and kind of waiting, it's just like that's kind of my switch. So it's
Yeah.
the event of going to the movies and the switch of my mindset is I've realized is more a part of it than I had anticipated before. And then of course once the movie comes on, and depending on how enjoyable the movie is, and you it's even more so if it. I tell people that, because people ask me all the time about movies. What have you seen lately, and whatever. And I tell them, I'm like, if a movie makes me either do one of three things: feel, think, or teach me something, or sometimes two of the three or all three, then I've had a good entertainment experience. Aside from just turning that switch off from my work week mind. So that's kind of how self care in the movies are so near and dear to my heart. It was started out as just a distraction from a bad period of time that I was going through in my life, and it's become a very intentional two part. The mindset shift. That's hard to say quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and just the entertainment, the feeling and emotion from whatever movie you watch, or makes you ponder your own life, makes you think, or I've been into the true crime documentaries lately where I'm learning stuff about whatever. So there's that. If we're strengthening our mind and our brain by just intaking these things and feeling whatever emotion, and whether it's sadness or joy, or it's a funny movie, or whatever the case may be. Um, yeah, that's kind of when a trip to the movie theater has been successful, and I hope, and Chris has talked about this on his podcast. I hope the theaters don't go away, because there's this. It's kind of at a very ominous point. Um, Kathy, you and I have talked about that, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What's going to be, what's going to be, you know?
Would be sad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that would
really
be
don't
so
want them
sad.
to go away because, like you said, sometimes you need to get out of your house
Yeah,
and go someplace else to enjoy the story. And I
yeah.
love watching things at home too, but it's nothing like going to the theater. Mm.
So Liza, this was kind of, you picked this topic. So are there? So what
This is
what?
unusual. I got to step away for 1 second.
Yep. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking, well, I can tell, one of my little Hollywood stories while we're
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that
Yep. Go
moment.
ahead.
Well, I remember it was I was a history major in college. And when the Berlin Wall went down, I quit school for a semester and traveled over to Germany and just backpacked and was just really needed to touch everything myself and get a piece of the Berlin Wall and just see things and see what people were doing in that environment. It was really amazing. And then I went to visit Auschwitz and I went to
Mm,
visit a whole bunch of different places that I would study about in my history books. And I just wanted to see everything firsthand. And I thought that was just something I was doing for my own curiosity, my own just absolute desire to experience in tactile ways of the stuff I was learning. And that was in 1992 that I went. And then when I came back, I got my job after I graduated, all these things. I was working at Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, and they were working on Schindler's List. And I remember meeting Branko Lustig, who was the producer there, who had really pitched this idea of
yep. You
Schindler's
there?
List.
Oh, you're breaking up, Liza.
Oh, um, okay. It's trying to keep connecting. I don't know why it's going in and out. Um, there. Can you
Up,
hear
up.
me now?
Yep. You're back. Yep. There you go.
Oh, good. So I was back at Amblin Entertainment and they were working on Schindler's List. So I
Mm,
met with Branko Lustig and I said, I have a scrapbook. If you would be, I mean, obviously you don't need to see it, you know everything already, but it's like some interesting perspective. And it was one of my best memories ever. Was he took it all the way upstairs to Steven, and it was them like going through my travel log and sort of looking at Auschwitz at that time when I had just been there. It was almost like I'd done a little location scout for them. And I remember feeling so proud that I'd done it and then spoken up enough to share it. And
yeah.
it just was like a really big, fun, moment to feel like I was part of them in their storytelling. And I really appreciated that. And then another funny part about working on that movie is like, well, do you speak French? We heard you speak French. And I'd studied, tiny bit of French. And I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. No problem. You got to just like Google it secretly later,
Yeah.
But so I got, promoted to help them more with the film by getting the crew into all their hotels, by basically calling all the hotels and be like, parlez-vous anglais? And they were all like, yes, we speak English. I was like, okay, great. I need like 10 rooms, I just like scooted through that way, but it turned out to be, just a really fun tie-in to life and being curious and going and exploring. And then who knew it would be part of my career story, and things like that just come around for a circle. I love it. And then I just remember that movie really mattered so much to me. And in that last quote where he says, whoever saves one life saves the world entire. And I feel like we need to think about that every day. And that movie was about making a singular choice as an individual to have an impact on as many as you could. But every day we have the choice to save one life. And that helps us, we be kind to people, we be good to people, we help people through their circumstances. And slowly but surely you're saving the world entire. Like, I just feel like that's such a thing to remember in our daily lives. And I take that as inspiration from that whole experience.
I've never watched that whole movie. I've seen bits and pieces, but I've never watched the whole movie through.
It's really worth
Yeah.
immersing yourself all the way in, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I really feel like it's such a positive story at the end. It's so human. Obviously we know the story, but like this perspective is unique, and that individual, Schindler was unique, and the music's unique, and just how they made that come to life with, I think, obviously just one of a kind. But that was an important project, and lifelong, experience. It makes me feel good to have been alive through that movie,
Yeah.
for sure.
And to have had your scrapbook of a vacation or a history lesson that you took on your own to be
Hmm.
used in some way as material, in the movie. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
that was really cool. I was like, wow, that was something I was proud to tell my kids, later in life. They're like, yeah, mom, whatever. How was working on Twister? And I'm like, fine, but what about this story? Oh, who cares about that? But I was very proud of that. That was a cool adventure. So, and that brings me to like other movies. Like, I was talking to my daughter who's 21 now, and we were talking about movies that, make you think about like spirituality or overcoming hard things. And that Hacksaw Ridge was something that she reverts back to and really thinks that is a very universal, loving story that is really powerful. And I'd forgotten a lot about that one. Other movies I like in those kind of ways, I like some of those war stories where like Band of Brothers and 13 Hours. And I don't know if it's the camaraderie, like if I watch those when I'm feeling lonely. And I love that they are like bonded to such a life level like that. And I just feel like sometimes when you just want to feel that connected to people in a way, those movies make you think facing adversity or those kind of dangers as a group is like a brotherhood that is just unbelievable. And I
Yeah.
love those. And then one of my others that I love, and for some reason on this theme, but that Jojo Rabbit. I don't know if you guys have seen Jojo Rabbit,
Hmm.
kind of obscure Academy winner kind of thing. But that again, it took a weird, horrible piece of history and turned it into a really human story that ended up life affirming. And I think that always somehow makes me feel affirmed and positive at the end of that somehow, and those kids, you see that story through some of these kids' eyes. It takes stereotypes away and takes a lot of the it just makes us remember we're all human beings, and that I like to see that in movies a lot. So, and then there's other things I love that I watch when I'm feeling like my family isn't perfect. I'll watch things like Shameless, and I will love Shameless. I'll watch every episode forever 10 million times because like I always feel like no matter how bad my family is, we're not quite as bad as everybody, but somehow they also bond together and like
Yeah.
keep plodding through. And like, that's what I love. There's like, you just have to stop being judgmental at a certain point and just love everyone's individuality. And like, their stories are funny and tough, and we're all just in this crazy life, you know? Thinking some other ones. Blended recently, I also, that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite. You know, when you think life's really got you pegged in one corner, you can have a, you know, be open to falling in love again. And I love that comedy version of
Adam
that.
Sandler. Yeah.
Yes, he and Drew Barrymore are hilarious all the time. You know, I watch 50 First Dates over and over for those two. And I love Grown Ups, like all that kind of family comedy. I think helps a lot during, you know, when you're wondering, am I doing this right, or you know, is there one way to have your family work? And it's no, there's a million ways, and all these characters really make that fun, and laughing through that is great. I mean, I was loving those back in the you know, what are the one with the Chevy Chase movies and all those. I love all those,
The
even Flex.
Vacation. Yeah.
Yeah, all those vacation ones. I mean, you just feel in touch with, you know, the craziness of family. You know.
So I wrote some stuff down when I was at work today. I was trying to think of different movies that made me feel different kind of ways.
Hmm.
And Kathy, you'll appreciate this one. I don't know how much of the Marvel movies, Liza, you've watched, but um, in Avengers Endgame, there's that scene, and I call it the Avengers Assemble scene, where they all the blipped characters start to come back, and they have the big battle on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And there's that, like, that moment is so, like, you've got all these portals to all these other worlds opening up, and all these, you know, Captain America and Iron Man had been fighting each other in the previous movie. So you've got all these people that aren't not necessarily connected in any way, who are coming together for a common goal to beat the big evil and Thanos. And that's just something cool about, hey, we're all going to put down the issues we're having because there's this bigger issue that's, you know, affects all of us. Let's all get together and tackle that Thanos in the world.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the last movie I saw in the theaters before COVID shut down the theaters was a movie called I Still Believe. It's the story of Jeremy Camp, who's a real life gospel singer,
Mhm.
and there's a Gary Sinise plays the Jeremy Camp's father, and there's a scene that I go back on YouTube and watch over and over, where Gary Sinise talks about the struggles in his own life. Jeremy Camp has lost his wife to cancer, and he's trying to understand why and the spirituality part of why this happens. And his father's a pastor, and he says something along the lines of, "My life is not full in spite of the struggles. My life is full because of the struggles." And that's like that stuck with me. And there's another scene. There's so many good scenes in this movie, but there's another scene, and I've never. This is the only time and I've go to movies all the time. This is the only time I've ever been to a movie theater where the whole movie theater was bawling, crying. There's a prayer scene where his wife is struggling with cancer, and he's singing at one of his own concerts,
Mhm.
and he stops the concert and he says, "Ask the whole crowd to pray for his wife," and everybody stands up,
Yeah.
and 10,000 people all come together, and they lift her up in prayer. And I was new to my walk with the Lord at that time, and I remember going out to my car and sitting there and I was bawling in the theater, and the whole theater was it's just something. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was ironic that was the last movie I saw before they shut the theaters down for COVID.
That
Um,
is. That'll stick with you for sure.
and I also wrote down like those underdog movies, and maybe the biggest underdog movie of all time, Rocky, the whole
Right.
Rocky series,
Yeah.
and that scene where, you Adrian was in the hospital and she gets better and she says, "Just go win," and like that gives him permission to take the fight, and he starts running and the music comes on. And he runs up the steps, and if you've got a pulse, you get goosebumps. It's just that whole, okay, the underdog's going to fight back now, and
Yeah.
anything with an underdog in it, just
Me
Makes
too, 100%. Love the underdogs.
And I also wrote down A Few Good Men because there's something about when we determine who the bad guy is in a movie, when the bad guy gets his in the end,
Hmm.
it's just like, but it's kind of twofold because Jack Nicholson's character is the bad guy, and you know he gets his in the end. He gets arrested, and he gets what's coming to him as the bad guy. But Tom Cruise's character also kind of comes out of the shadow of his father's success as a lawyer, and he kind of starts realizing his own potential, and he kind of sees what kind of lawyer he can be. So there's these two roads that are completely different, but they're both satisfying in different ways that all come to this climax at the end in the courtroom. It's just
Justice is a
yeah.
good feeling.
And Crazy Rich Asians was one of my all time pleasant surprise movies, and that's a really cool romantic scenes. The wedding scene where the water's coming into the church and the girls singing the Elvis Presley song
Yeah.
was really cool. But there's that redemption where this young woman who's about to get married, is not accepted into this rich Asian family, and she's at odds with the future mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law won't accept her. And she meets her at this scene at a mahjong table, and she finally stands up for herself, and she tells her what for, and it's kind of similar, you
Yeah.
and Michelle Yeoh plays the mother-in-law, and you kind of like you're like, yeah, she finally got it coming, but
Yeah.
she turns around and sees the error of her ways, and it kind of there's that redemption to that, and that's a cool
Yeah.
thing when like it's a little bit of an underdog, but there's some redemptive qualities, and then somebody kind of sees the error of their ways. You kind of It's kind of a double whammy of some good feelings in the end,
Yeah.
and that's always a good thing.
It gives you some confidence to do that in your own life, to like step up and earn that respect. And then when you get that validation, it's such a
Yeah,
win.
and when that person that's been disrespecting you, when they start saying, "Oh, maybe I've been wrong all this time," and they kind of turn things around, that's just like icing on the cake.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
We always hope for some kind of outcome. We want some kind of closure of some kind at the end of the movie,
Hmm.
unless we know there's a sequel where, and then we know, yeah,
Yeah. And that's like what we were talking about, Officer and a Gentleman, before we turn this on. And it's so funny because I remember watching that over and over and over and being like, at that last moment when he swoops in and steals her out of her life. And it's just like, it makes you think in your own life, like, I have to feel that. I'm waiting for that guy. I'm waiting to be swooped away. And I want to feel like it's that big and romantic. So sometimes the movies are perfect for that because they just let you abandon any other constraints and just let you have that one dreamy fantasy moment. And that's
yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah.
Hope is a big one for me. When any movie that kind of like portrays hope in the world, even if
Hmm.
it's fictional, you know what I mean? For those 2 hours, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's just like you just kind of need that little bump yourself. Maybe you're feeling a little down. You head into the movies, and you're like, oh, okay. There's good in this world, and
Exactly.
even if it's a fictional story, yeah.
Keep
The
waiting
the
for it.
the Ted Lassos,
Yeah, there we
yeah.
go. Yes. Yes. And I've been recently introduced to this Baby Driver thing. It was my daughter and I were watching. It was a 2017 movie, but watch it for it won all sorts of awards for how the music is incorporated into the story.
Mm,
So it's worth looking up and watching. I think it's on Netflix or one of those, but it's a really cool story anyway. It's entertaining no matter what. It's like a bank heist kind of thing. Underdog, bank heist, kid, redemption, playing the odds, see what happens kind of thing. But nothing I've ever seen has used music in the way that this music is used, physically used. Like his steps are to the beat of the songs. When he takes his ear pods out, it fades differently and he moves differently to the rhythms that he's listening to. Like it's so interesting to watch it for that sake.
and who's in it?
Can't remember the guy. You'll recognize him.
And
He's a
what
famous young kid.
What's kind of the synopsis of the movie?
Um, he's like a down and out kid. He gets wrangled up in a crime circuit, but he has a certain talent as being this young driver kid. He's like magically amazing, and he's paying off a debt by driving some of these bank robberies, and they escalate and escalate. And you wonder, is he, when's he gonna get out? And he's such a good kid. He's taking care of a foster dad. He's like the heart of gold. He's just this lone survivor in a really weird world, and you're wondering, will he lose to that world, or will he survive it with his inner strength and excellence? And it sort of all crescendos into the end, and I'm gonna have you watch it
Yeah.
to see what he does. Like, does he get out in time, or does he fall at the end when they've just pushed too hard, that one last big thing?
Yeah.
So it's an individual, it's just a really fun, you're rooting for him the whole time, and everything's escalating around him constantly. And he's always, vulnerable to everything around. And you just want him to escape with his life somehow.
Yeah.
So it's just fun.
What about you, Kath? Any movies that come to mind as far as making you feel some kind of way?
So, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt your good dialogue you two had on as I had to walk away for a minute. But I guess I just, when I'm thinking about movies, I think about it to be more of a family experience. Some of my early memories are, my family, my parents were really good about, we might not have had a lot in life, but we certainly did a lot of things and have a lot of memories and experiences, to include, traveling or movies or just doing things. We were a
Yeah.
family that did things. So my parents always took us to the movies, and I remember going to the old Avalon, and you saw the Disney movies, and that was a big deal. And you went and
Yep.
got the candy behind the red rope, um, and I remember being in the movie theater to see the original Star Wars. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, what just happened? And and now if you watch the original Star Wars without the effects that have been upgraded, it's probably a real bummer. But we thought that was something out of this world. Or
Yeah.
seeing E.T. for the first time in the movie theater, or
Yep.
all those big classics. And then we've done the same thing with our kids, and we've been big movie people. And so, I've always been a Star Wars fan, and when the Marvels came in, I wasn't I wasn't a comic book person,
Me
but
neither.
I was like, wow, these characters, I loved it. I loved all of the Marvels and the Harry Potter. I'm a sequel person because
Yeah.
I never get enough, and that's over. I'm like, darn it, I want to know what happened with that person. I think for movies, for me, just like what you're saying, it's like, it's an escape. It's escapism. I want to be a book reader really bad, but I'm really not necessarily a book reader. I'm an article reader, but I can go to the movies and watch that book, right? And I think it's very much escape for me from my life. Whatever's going on, you're there. You've got food. Sadly, food is a winner for me. You give me some popcorn, a soda, and some snow cats, I am good. And you know, it's the music. It makes you feel a certain way. You run the gamut. You're crying, you're laughing, you're happy, you're mad. It's all the emotions. And for whatever, maybe that's a good cleansing to go and have all those
Yeah.
emotions. And like Liza saying, you might see something that reminds you of your life, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I not have it that bad, or maybe I need to look at this differently. So, it just, if you let it just pulls so much out of you. Think of everything we've seen. Titanic, we all cried. The whole movie theater cried. Titanic. What is the one? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name. I know everybody in the theater cried for that one too. Where the guy's daughter is kidnapped, and God comes in the form of this female. Oh my gosh, The Shack. The Shack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that dig to your soul and
Yep.
make you cry. But
Tim McGraw and who else is in that?
that's a movie. But I want to say something funny too. You're talking about the end game, right? And
Yep.
shoo. And I hate those movies where like you gotta wait a year or two for it to end, and you're like, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
But I remember after COVID or whatever. It wasn't really after COVID. We were coming back to life after COVID, and Tristan and Alice, Liza, remember that weird senior year and everything was pushed into like I don't even know how many weeks that was. Like Tristan played 3 sports in like 6 weeks. I'm probably exaggerating, but whatever that was. So he decided he was going to be a football player. He didn't play football, but he was for that short little COVID season, and he was a kicker. And then it was also his senior year, so we got to go out on the field. And now Liza has been a football mom, so she's experienced that before. But that was my first time at the Friday Night Lights, so I'm on the field thinking I'm all that, and I'm walking out like, oh. And then it dawned on me, I'm seeing all these people in the bleachers, or, the stadium, and I'm like, this is like Endgame. I was like, wow, I haven't seen you in forever. And I haven't seen you. It's like all these people started popping back in. And I related to Endgame. I just kept feeling like, then there's Iron Man and there's Stevie Diet. And
Yeah. It
like,
is an amazing.
But you can relate movies to your life in some kind of corny way, I guess, and it makes you smile.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. The movie, no matter how old I get, and no matter how many times I've seen it,
Dylan's here. I know you're listening in the back. He probably's thinking. You're thinking, right?
The Wizard of Oz.
What is it? Infinity Wars, he said was better, Dylan.
Yes.
Dylan's our movie buff.
What a mind-opening movie that was.
Which one? The Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard of Oz. If you think about it, if you watch it in 2024, this is a movie that was made in 1939. Starts off in black and white. So if you introduce a kid that's 10 years old to the Wizard of Oz now, they're probably thinking, what is this black and white? But the whole it was done so well that it made the land of Oz look so much better, right? Because they transitioned from black and white to the color of 1939, which was that was the effect, was just putting color in the movie, was their huge special effect. But I sing along, Follow the Yellow Brick Road, and I know, and at the end when he says, you've always had the ability to find your way home, you just click your heels. So you've always had it in you the whole time, you just didn't know. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow, you're 50 some years old, and you're thinking, oh yeah, there's these grown up lessons in the Wizard of Oz. No matter how many times you see it, it's one of those. Yeah,
Dylan's gonna make a spot. He's gonna come. He can't handle it.
I have a question for Jack.
Yep.
I need your opinion on The Office. Like the show.
I've never seen it ever in my life.
So you'd probably love it.
Here's the thing. I'm rewatching it for like the fourth time right now. I thought this week we were going to just, have a conversation about this. But I need you to watch it now, okay?
Now, did you know that was originally a British show that they
did? Ricky Gervais, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but the American one is just better. Steve Carell. Awesome.
I say that. I have seen bits and pieces. When it was actually on, and I would be flipping through. I would watch a couple minutes here and there.
He's eating.
John Krasinski, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, you gotta watch it. It's literally my favorite show ever.
It's funny now that you talk about. I'm thinking about John Krasinski, and I'm going to see A Quiet Place Day 1 this Friday, and he's not involved with this one. He did the first two.
Yeah.
And Lupita Nyong'o is the lead actress in this one, and it gives you the origin story of the creatures, the aliens that come.
Ooh,
so
that would be good.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing this Friday.
What's your biggest feel-good movie?
Feel-good
movie?
Wait,
so I said my deal about movies. How do you feel like?
Let me see.
You can say.
What do you mean?
Like, how do movies? You feel?
Yeah, our topic is like how movies make you feel and how different movies make you have different emotions.
I don't mean to eat. Sorry.
You're good. It's organic. It's natural.
Yeah. I think that. Whoa. Okay. I think that I like to watch a movie. I like to connect with the character. Like I like that's how I sort of watch a movie. So I don't like to watch movies that I don't watch scary movies because I don't understand the point of that.
Yeah.
Getting scared for no reason. I like to watch movies that do make me feel good. Okay, here's the thing. I like a good rom-com. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you said that before. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't know, they're easy to watch. They make me feel good. I do like a superhero movie because those are pretty cool. I do like a Rocky of sorts. It'll inspirational, get me in the gym a little
Yeah.
bit. You know?
The underdog story. Yeah.
I think that I like. I think it's cool that movies can make people feel different. If I'm feeling motivated, I'll watch Rocky. It'll get me in the gym. Or if I feel like I need a pick me up, I'll watch a comedy movie, make me laugh. Or if I want to. I don't. But if say I wanted to get scared, I can watch a scary movie. You know what I mean? There's just a lot to it.
What do you
Which I
think
think
your
is-
friends your age? So you're still in high school. What do you think? Do you think all kids your age kind of feel the same way? We feel the same way about movies, but do you think kids your age do feel that way about movies?
Uh,
Or is it just entertainment to them?
I think I think it's probably more entertainment at this point. I don't think that people my age necessarily go into a movie to like feel a certain way about it. I think it's just like, oh, blah blah blah's on. Let's just watch it. It's pretty good. I don't think they're as invested. I'm not to brag, but I think I will go into movies looking at it differently because
So
I
you're like a 40-year-old.
appreciate cinema, and I think that I appreciate everything that goes into make a movie. But
Well,
I
Dylan,
think that people go into movies and just it's a movie. It's supposed to be entertaining.
yeah.
That's that. They don't really think about it after.
Now, Dylan, it's funny. Even at my age, I don't go into watching a movie with the intention of feeling a certain emotion at all. Now, once I'm done the movie, like I was saying earlier, one of the things that makes me know that a movie's been successful for me, being entertained, is it either makes me feel, makes me think, or teaches me something.
Mhm.
So, your friends probably, and there's a saying that it goes, it's like this: you won't always remember what people say, you won't always remember what people do, but you'll always remember how people make you feel. That's how movies are.
Mhm.
So even people your age, they may not realize it, but they go back and they watch those movies over and over because it made them feel something.
Yeah,
They
I
may
think
not.
they're certainly
Um,
comfort movies for people.
Yeah, and it might be joy. It might, it's a comedy that might be joy, or it might be a sports movie that makes them feel inspiration. They feel something, or they wouldn't go back and watch it again. Um, that's that's what I'm guessing, Liza. You'd know better than I would. That's how movie makers they want to tap into something, an emotion of some kind, to draw an audience.
We're a Christmas movie family too. We like
Oh,
Christmas
Christmas
movies.
movies are awesome. I like Christmas Vacation. I think that's my favorite.
The vacation movies.
Yeah, that's a good one. But
Liza, we've lost your audio.
So you got to turn it back on.
Now, Dylan, there you go. Now, Dylan, do you watch the Hallmark Christmas movies at all?
Oh my gosh, that's a great topic.
We have a story.
All right, here's the
'Cause
thing.
I love them.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot I can because I don't want to get hooked in them, and then I sit down and I'm like, all right, you know what? It's Hallmark, it's Christmas, whatever. And 5 hours later, I've watched 3 of them, and I'm like, wow, that was quick. But also, they have the same story every time. I know how it's going to end.
But we don't care.
I still watch it.
It
Here's a
gives
good
you the
story.
ending that you want. It
does.
satisfies you.
Yep.
Here's a good story. So my parent and I, my
Here it
mom, my dad,
comes.
and me, we sit down. It's like afternoon. It's like 3:00 maybe on like a Saturday or whatever. I don't know. Everyone else is going. I don't know how. But so we're just watching Hallmark movies, right? Pretty normal. We're just like, all right. About I don't know, maybe 4 hours later, we're like, I check the time. I'm like, wow. And then another one starts up because I think they're all like 2 hours. So I think another one starts up, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. This ends now. I'm like, I need dinner. Okay, we can't do this. So I literally turn the TV off, and I think I got Taco Bell or something. So
I was so
really
mad.
won,
I'm like,
but
what are you doing? He's like, this madness needs to stop. People need to eat.
it was like brainwashed. He just kept watching the TV. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
that's a good formula right there.
Yeah.
they're a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good wholesome family movies.
Yeah.
You really can't go wrong.
Yeah.
No, they serve their purpose for sure.
And when they come out every what every I guess
Oh
it's
wait, we're getting ready to get Christmas in July.
Christmas in July, and then like I think at Halloween they start the new like one new movie a week until Christmas is like they'll do like 20 some new ones. That's when I get like I'm like all about that.
I think it's Thanksgiving.
They start early.
Isn't it
No,
Thanksgiving?
they start pretty early. I
Really?
think.
Yeah, it's right after Halloween.
Well, don't you
That's
be
what they try to
rushing
do.
my Halloween movies. I got to watch all the Goosebumps. Come on now.
Yeah,
Halloween Town.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not. Halloween movies are weird for me because, like, I don't know, creepy. It's just creepy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the plot of half of them are. It's pretty weird.
To survive.
They serve their purpose too.
Mhm.
It's the job done.
So Dylan, besides The Office, what have you been watching lately?
Here's the thing. I sit down and I probably watch 8 hours of The Office a day. So that's been what's been
That's your job.
That's been what's doing it for me in the summer. It's just The Office.
We haven't really watched a movie
I
as
don't.
a
It's
family.
been a
have we?
while since I've watched a movie. There's
Or other
obviously
streaming.
or a show other than The Office. So.
I want you to watch Baby Driver then.
Baby Drive. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
You have?
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I've heard a lot about it. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I think I should watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dylan, you missed it earlier. Liza was talking about a little Hollywood story when she was a history major. She had gone over and traveled in Europe and was just taking like scrapbook notes, and then got involved with the movie Schindler's List.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they took some of her notes from her trip to Europe, were places she had been, and used them as references in the movie because she worked for Steven Spielberg back then.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty big movie.
Fun. That was a nice full circle for sure.
Yeah,
Just
it's
at least
pretty
they
awesome.
looked at my pictures. Yeah.
So yeah, I watched last Friday. I went and saw The Watchers,
Hmm.
and I was telling Liza earlier before we came on, I was actually pleasantly surprised. You've heard of M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah.
His daughter. This is
Okay,
her directorial debut. He's the producer, and she directs, and you could definitely tell like it's got that visual, it's got that kind of vibe to it. But it's got it's more of like a thriller mystery, a little bit mythology kind of tone to it. I was a little skeptical when I read the previews. I did not watch any previews. Dakota Fanning is in it. It's actually got a neat little different type of story to it, and it's very thriller mystery kind of deal. And I like those more so than I like a horror movie.
Hmm.
So
Jen,
I was
did watch your movie. Your suggestion, Bratz. I lied. I have watched something different. I did watch
So-
Bratz.
You watched that? How'd you like it?
I did. It wasn't what I thought at all.
It's more about Andrew McCarthy's journey than it is about the Brat Pack, I think.
Yeah,
Liza, have you seen it?
he's moving on to the Orioles.
Yeah. I know. No, I have not.
Well, you know the Brat Pack.
He'd probably like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andrew McCarthy does this, or he's the person in this documentary where he kind of goes back and tells us how that term came to be,
Okay.
how it affected everybody. He
like
goes back and interviews Emilio Estevez and Demi Moore and Ali Sheedy and some of the producers and directors from those John Hughes, and the 16
Yes,
Candles and
yes,
like and the Breakfast Club and those, and it's really, and it is nostalgic. It kind of takes you back, and kind of some music plays in the background, and that's always cool because 80s music is always good.
Yeah.
But it's so much more about like that the whole the term Brat Pack came about. This writer in New York was doing an interview with Emilio Estevez, and it kind of evolved into him dubbing them the Brat Pack, and how it had these negative connotations, and it affected all of them, but it really negatively affected Andrew McCarthy big time.
Yeah.
And even as a adult, in his 50s or whatever he is now, and he starts this journey of talking to these people and trying to like come to grips with this, and he's like mad about it. Like he's still, and as each person he talks to is kind of a step along the journey into him sorting out this issue from his past. And by the end, he talks to the guy that wrote the article that came up with the name, and they come to peace. And it's
Nice.
so much more about his journey finding peace with this event that happened to him back in the 80s that had a negative impact on him than it is about. Now, don't get me wrong, it is about, it's informative, and it gives us stuff that we didn't realize. Like Kathy was saying, she didn't realize that those actors didn't hang out outside of the movies.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily friends. And how Molly Ringwald did not, she was not part of the documentary. She's kind of moved on from it. But John Cryer, he did interview John Cryer. So, and it's just cool how, and Rob Lowe, Rob Lowe had some really cool stuff to say.
Yeah, I'd love to watch that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Jay, if you think about this, well, first I want to say I was impressed with Rob Lowe. He probably turned it all around. He was the therapist in this, in my mind.
Yeah.
If you take this conversation back to the original conversation you had about the golfer, there's some similarities here, right? Because these guys were kids when all those teenage movies came out, and then you have a media guy that wrote some stuff that they thought was really negative, and then they went on talk shows or whatever and said how it's ruined them and this and that. I mean, but looking back now, and that's them kind of putting some resolution to that, some peace to that. Like, but
Right.
what was the difference between social media is now the new Teen Beat magazine or
Yep.
whatever, and
It's always been something that you
always
have
been
to-
something struggles for people to deal with, and it was a label. It was a label that they didn't like,
Yeah, they internalized it, and now we're getting the gifts of figuring out how not to internalize those outer voices.
Yeah. And as fans back then, as teenagers ourselves, or in our early 20s, we didn't think anything of the name Brat Pack one way or the other. But
No. Never even thought one word about it. Never thought about it.
But you can, if you just take that term Brat Pack, it does have a negative connotation. Like it makes them sound like bratty and entitled, and like they didn't work for it. And people in the documentary talk about that, and those are all legitimate things. But the thing was, Andrew McCarthy held on to that for well into his 50s, and like doing this documentary was his therapy. His way, whether he intended to do that or not. And I didn't want to say anything to you guys, Kathy, before, because I didn't want to, when Krista was on, because I didn't want to give away. And it was a surprise to me when I got done watching it. I'm like, oh, that wasn't really it. I mean, yes, it was. It kind of gave us a history lesson about those movies and stuff like that. But it was more so about him trying to come to terms than it was that era of movies.
Which was surprising and good. I like the surprise about it. Because isn't that what we all...
Yeah.
I mean, we all hold on to something, some label we tell about ourselves, right? We're this, we're that, and how do you not be that? And at the end, I think it was a lot about what Liza was talking about earlier, being kind to one another and just kind of, I don't know, they were laughing it off at the end.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found interesting was when he interviewed Demi Moore, she kind of gave us a scoop that they got her out of rehab to do St. Elmo's Fire. She was in rehab, and they wanted her to come. And at first she said, no, I'm in rehab. And then somehow they talked her into leaving rehab to come do that movie.
Like that, and then have her play somebody that needed to be in rehab.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, that poor woman.
That is intense.
Yes, it was a lot of cool little tidbits that we didn't know, and it was definitely some nostalgic moments. But it was Andrew McCarthy's therapy session is what that what that documentary was.
Good. And it ended with one of the greatest songs of all times.
Oh yeah, and that scene with him with his fist in the air on the football field, leaving the Breakfast Club.
That's the greatest.
Right?
And, yeah, you could tell Emilio Estevez didn't really want to do it. He didn't really want to be interviewed, but he kind of went along with it.
He was a little like
he was just very. He was just standoffish. But
where's your place?
He was the first one that he interviewed too, so maybe he was thinking, "Oh, what's this? This Ali Sheedy was pretty. She was the other one that kind of said, "Oh yeah, it sucked for me too," but you could tell she had kind of.
You remember too. She said she like in the Breakfast Club. She was kind of like that person in high school, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
She was kind of challenging that struggling teen in the movie.
Yeah, just trying to find who she was and she was very, she lashed out and kind of expressing herself in different unhealthy ways and yeah, trying to figure out who she was. Yeah, that's
What
like
a good,
a,
that's such a good movie, isn't it? It's
that's a
like,
classic. Every time that song comes on, I'm like, that song to me, Kathy, more than any other, like epitomizes the '80s to me. Like that,
85.
yes. Um, and a lot of songs do, but for some reason that one song, because it's just that movie is so iconic, and it kind of gives a representation of probably what a lot of high schools to some degree were like back then, and probably still are in
Clicks.
in an updated way now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, social media probably doesn't allow it to form like that, but
Yeah.
yeah, good movie.
So what else? Anything else anybody's been watching lately that you want to talk about?
I've been in a dry spell, Had the Ted Lasso. I'm still recovering from missing my friend Ted, and then so I did do Bratz because you told me to, Jay, and I'm waiting for your next recommendation for a show.
I got one for you.
I know
It's
you've told me before.
it's on Hulu. No, this is a new one. It's on Hulu. It's called The Perfect Wife. It's a true story. It's a documentary, that story's been on like 2020 or Dateline. I was telling Liza this earlier.
And I'm gonna
It's
like that. Why?
Yes, it's
I'm
a true
waiting for
story.
that.
It's the story of a woman called Sherry Papini, and yeah, the disappearance of the mysterious disappearance of this woman, and it's called The Perfect Wife, and it's on Hulu. And Hulu's actually stepped up their game with some of these
Really?
true crime,
Oh
and
wait, we just saw this on. Was that on Hulu? Bratz, right? Was it on Hulu?
Bratz was on Hulu. Yes,
Yeah.
yep. So that's one, and you'll probably as you watch it, you might recognize the story because it was like a nationwide story in the early to mid 2000s. I don't want
Well,
to give away.
I'm waiting for Cobra Kai, and I know you haven't watched that. I'm waiting for that to come out in the fall.
Gotcha.
The
And,
third or fourth season.
Stranger Things isn't coming out until fall of next year.
Who knows? They're going to be 50 by the time that comes out. I don't know what they're going to do with that.
I did see Millie Bobby Brown on her Instagram
Yeah.
recorded herself in the cafeteria on the set, and she had blood, fake blood, like dripping out of her mouth. And she's like, "Don't mind this. This is not real." She was like, everybody has like their own little like this is somebody's coffee station. This is somebody's like snack station. She was telling us what each person's like breakfast order was, and she was going around the cafeteria through that. It was only like a minute or two, but I thought that was kind of cool.
So they're still filming,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah,
That's going to be good. That's going to be good.
yeah. These shows are kind of slowly coming back out after the strike.
But there's no like, I mean, all those Outer Banks, Stranger Things, Ted Lasso. There's like we need a new one to take their place. Where we're all hooked in it and excited about it.
Here's a question, Liza, and I'm going to ask Chris this if and when we ever get him on. Like on a movie set, how hard is it to like stop production? Like in this case, when the strikes hit, how hard is it to stop production and then whether it's 3 or 4 months, 6 months, whatever, and then pick back up? Like how does that affect, or how can it affect the end result?
It's probably one of the worst things that could possibly happen, because to align the forces of nature to get everybody's schedules in the first place, it's almost, you might have to recast it. Most likely you will have to recast it. Most likely you'll have to start completely from scratch with locations, with
Oh my
just
gosh.
literally your crew. I mean, everybody's schedules are like a Tetris game or whatever, where you can't just take it off and put it back on again. They're all different crew, different people, schedules everywhere all the time, multiple everything. So it's the worst.
Very difficult.
And
And
when
I
you
asked
say
that.
recast, you might have to do scenes that were with somebody else all over again, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's really hard when you've gotten further down into the story, and like you can't just recast, but then you have to wait maybe 3 years to get that same cast instead
Oh,
of 3
wow.
months.
And
And
the
then it's weird. Then you have to have that wardrobe, like we talked about with Best Friend's Wedding, how it's like in a warehouse and they had to come back 6 months later and put the wigs on and they all look different. And it's like, you do that a year or two out, or even 6. It's really hard to have all the props. It's just everything matched, continuity.
Yeah. The
It's
reason why I ask is there's been a couple shows that have finally started back up again after the long hiatus from the strike, and in both cases, I'm like, it doesn't. It's not the same, and I'm one of them visually just doesn't look the same at all, and I'm wondering, is that a because the wave of excitement from that original thing has died down so much that it's not as big a deal to me as a viewer, which is certainly probably part of it. But is the quality of the what I'm seeing on screen different because they took 3 or 4 months off, and so you kind of even if you can get all the people back together and everybody's the scheduling is luckily okay. Like, does it take a while to kind of muscle memory and get your groove back and kind of get back into the day to day things of recording a movie or a show?
Oh, definitely. So many things would have changed technology wise, even just a lighting crew change.
And I'm curious to watch them to find if I can tell a difference for a movie that was actually finished before the strike, but they waited. The strike just delayed the public putting out of the movie or the show, where you wouldn't see that discontinuity. It was just delayed. The finished product was delayed, it was delayed in the middle of the project.
Yeah.
But
I remember back in the day, it was New Line gave Lord of the Rings. That director shot all 3 series in at the same time. Like, he'd shot out of sequence. Like, he would part 3 was shot in certain scenes.
Oh my gosh.
So that he could ensure that he got all 3 done, which was
yeah,
kind of
all the
genius.
same people and crew. Yeah,
That must be hard though. That has to be incredibly
that's where the editors and whoever puts the
Yeah, because
back end.
exactly, you're shooting like all your locations at the same time, but they could be 3 different parts of the story just shot only specific to locations, and you're just like next scene, but it's not obviously chronological for the story. That's
Yeah.
all in the editing room, of course.
wow.
And it's not uncommon just for one movie for them to shoot out of sequence with what we
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they always usually do. You have to shoot however the locations or schedules work. Whatever the practical things, they dictate the order of
Yeah.
the scenes.
of the filming. Yeah,
Filming.
yeah. I would love to either actually be on an actual movie set and watch, or there to be some kind of really new, updated documentary behind the scenes of maybe not just a movie, but something streaming, because I think I perceive that it's maybe different. Episodic things are just different generally than a 2 hour filming of a 2 hour movie.
I of course obviously Liza has been on scenes or sets, but your brother did invite me. I got to be on a set in when we visited out in LA. And Chris, was the producer. That was really cool for me. It was the movie Guess Who
Oh, yeah, okay.
with
Yeah.
Ashton Kutcher, Bernie Mac, and David Krumholtz. And that would, I mean, one, like, I don't know what to expect, and like we're in the elevator with Ashton Kutcher and we're like, I don't know what to say. We didn't say anything. We were silent. I'm like,
Oh, no. Were you
and
surprised how much downtime there is as they're setting
oh
up?
yeah,
and all that?
and Ashton was not about people. I'm telling you, he wasn't very peoply that day. And then that David Krumholtz and he was in the Santa Claus movies, as Bernard. He was the coolest guy ever, and I felt
the head elf. Yeah,
we were like BFFs with him. I'm like, what the heck's the deal here? Like, what's wrong with Ashton Kutcher? Why is he being that way today? Like, we were asking him all kinds of things. He was giving us all the dirt on everything. He was so funny. But I was really excited about craft food.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
food, you can buy me with food. I was like, wait, what? Like people coming around and what do you need? What do you want? And then one, and then Ashton Kutcher's family was there that day, and the scenes are so slow, and I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll eat some more craft food. And then Chris was nice enough we had somebody watching our youngest in one of the trailers, one of the, whatever you call them, trailers. And he apparently started uncontrollably screaming. And so they called and they said, somebody's going to come back. I said, oh, heck no. I sent Marty back to sit in that trailer with Tristan.
Yeah.
This is my friend. I'm watching. Yeah.
Exactly. Good priorities for sure.
And the scene I saw, I don't even think it made the movie. It was like he was copying his rear end on a copy machine. I didn't see any rear ends for the record. But
wow. That would have been good.
I think it did. Because then I'm watching the movie, I'm like, wait, what? Where's that? I was there. I know what happened. So it was kind of cool. It was kind of fun. Lots of people busy.
Yeah. I was always surprised how they had to cover a scene, like the coverage. So you and I are having a conversation right now. You're going to say your lines and the camera's over here getting you doing it. Then you're going to do it again with the camera back over here doing it. Then we're going to get the two shot from the side. So you're reading the same lines over and over, but the camera's moving different angles. So in the editing room, you have all those choices for which way that conversation is going to be cut together nicely. But it's never just read once. You don't have 10 cameras to cover it all. And then every time they flipped point of view, you flip the whole lighting setup behind whoever's talking. So it's not fast.
I couldn't, I was shocked at that too. Like the difference is we got to move this later. That's not good enough, or your forehead's shiny or whatever. Or I'll just say that some actors that day were a little more bossy about things than other actors. I'll just say that. Yeah. And I was like, what the heck is his problem? Like, just take the daggone movie. Like, I was ready to be the director and be like, just stop. Stop that foolishness. Film that. Your hair's fine. You don't need that cigarette right now. Let's get it done. Like, I would be a terrible director.
I think a lot of actors, in their contract now, they'll say, I only will do it when I'm on camera. So if you're reading the other side, the camera's on the other person talking in the conversation, they'll be talking to some random person like me. So sometimes but they'll try to not be there for all of that coverage, just only when their face is on the camera. And that kind of makes sense if you do a lot of things, but it's the actors that love other actors will be like, I won't leave you for that. We have a rapport. You're talking to me. Yeah. I'm Johnny. You're Julie or whatever.
You want that interaction. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to see my eyes. We are connected, even though the camera is not on me. That's when actors love each other, but they don't always choose to do that.
Yeah. I also was surprised too. I obviously learned a lot about producing, from your brother, and that all the things they have to do to make things happen. This is a building in LA, and that you've got to your people are leaving. It was a business. We're going to pay you to not be here today. Or he's like, you even have to pay people on the street. Go do that down there. Here's some money. It's a whole thing. Yeah. Bringing all these props in. I was like, this is something. This is some kind of a lot of something.
And extras. Right now, we would shoot movies that say we were in an airport scene, and your extras are all the people walking behind the actors. And that's because they have to be the same people walking behind the actor every time they shoot that actor saying those lines in that camera angle.
Yep.
So it's not random who's walking back there. It's, cue the extra guy in green pants, go, so it's always the same for the editing room again. It's a lot of people being paid to be wandering around streets and stuff.
So we're really spoiled by the time we see it on the theater's big
movie
screen.
Magic. Yeah.
About all the nonsense that happens behind it. It's not as magic. It's a bit frustrating, right?
And from a script that might have been written 10 years ago and approved 5 years ago and filmed a year and a half ago, and
it's totally true. It's hard, but I don't have many other stories. I'll have to save them for the next one.
Yeah. That's this is about a good time to call it on this one. This has been our longest episode. We're over an hour and a half. But movies, you're going to talk for an hour and a half, or I can anyway.
There's always more to talk about for sure.
Yep. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Eastern Shore Talk. Please catch us on all social media and on our website, easternshoretalk.org, and you can actually watch the podcast on there now. And you guys have a good week. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Hey, thanks.
you. Bye.